Hajimemashite, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Hello, everybody. I don't know what I just said. I did like a couple months ago when I learned those two phrases, but I don't anymore. That's besides the point. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Differently Wired Show, episode 38, Cozying Up to Anxiety. I'm your host, as always, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kin, not jaundiced, as my friend Brian Lee Martinez would say. And sitting to my I don't know. Whenever I do the show, I just feel like you should be sitting on my left. It just feels I can't explain it. He is PhD. He's often mistaken for John Kay, former lead singer of the band Steppenwolf.
Is that so?
I mean, you kind of do look like him. I just sort of realized that when I was watching some old Steppenwolf videos today.
Is that a good thing?
Oh yeah, sure. He was a decent looking guy, but he's not him. Although he was born to be wild. He is John Tucker. John, what's happening?
I'm looking forward to another great show, Cozying Up to Anxiety, trying to twist us a little bit toward a different way of dealing with anxiety.
Yeah, you're the one that chose this topic. I'm still having a little bit of trouble understanding why, like, you use those particular words, but we'll get more into that sort of stuff in just a second. I just got to do the usual stuff, as I'm sure you guys are well aware. First of all, Facebook page, yada yada yada. Like if you haven't, do it, or otherwise I will find you. Discord server. Hold on, I'm actually curious right now. How many members do we have? I'm just going to look this up right now. We have 768 members. That's pretty good. Pretty good. We've had a large increase of people from this past week. In case you guys aren't aware and weren't here for last week's episode, we did have Rachel Moorfield on, who is another big voice in the world of mental health online, especially on YouTube. Last week's show has gotten collectively over 4,000 views across both my channel and her channel. Everybody really seemed to like it. She seemed to really enjoy doing it. And as a result of that, we've had people coming in, more moderators, listeners, and it's just been great all around. So, in case you guys aren't aware what the Discord server is, you just happen to be listening to this for the first time. It is basically a place where you can go to discuss my videos, but that's not the most important thing. It's really a place for neuroatypical, differently wired people to go and meet other people that are sort of like-minded, to like them. And if they need a place that's calm, need to talk to people that have sort of been through the same stuff that they've been through, and just some general understanding, it's a great place to go. Like I said on last week's episode, one of our frequent viewers, Nick, he told us that it's probably the most wholesome place that he's ever discovered on the internet, and I take great pride in that. And I'm proud of all you guys for making it that way. So please join if you haven't already. There's a link to it in the description box below. And finally, I do have a Subscribestar account, in case you guys don't know what that is. It's like Patreon, but as I say, it's like Patreon, but without all the unethical business practices. If you want to support the work that John and I do here on the Differently Wired Show, or the work that I do outside of the Differently Wired Show on my channel with my other videos, or just support them both collectively, make sure you click on the link in the description box below so you can go support me there. Doing so, depending on how much you choose to sponsor me, it will come with the requisite rewards, and you can all find out all about that by clicking on the link down below. So, with all that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of the show today, cozying up to anxiety. So, John, I from time to time I have a bit of difficulty coming up with a topic for the show, so I reach out to you, and you chose these particular words, and I wasn't entirely sure, and I'm still not entirely sure what you meant by it, because when you said cozying up to anxiety, I thought that meant a confrontation with anxiety, but you said no, that's not the appropriate way to look at it. Can you please explain more what you mean?
Yeah, of course. When something chases you, you run away. We try to run away from anxiety. It's pointless because it's inside us. So the harder we try to run away, the worse it gets. So I'm suggesting cozying up is a better way to handle it. Cuddling up, cozying up, finding out how it can be your friend. It is a thing that is alerting you to a problem.
John?
For maybe just 5 minutes.
John.
And 14 hours later, they kind of come out of their stupor and they say, oh my God.
John?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry. Unfortunately, OBS just happened to disconnect for the past 30 seconds, so I and nobody else could hear what
Okay.
you were saying. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
So can you please sort of start again with what you were saying, if you can
Tell,
remember what you
tell,
said?
tell me where I was.
I asked you sort of what you meant exactly by what cozying up to anxiety means, and you said, but it sort of means making a friend of it, coming to terms with the fact that it's sort of uh, an inescapable part of life and what you have to do with that knowledge.
Mm-hmm. So the thing is that when you avoid anxiety, run away from it by doing some avoidance technique, that can be drugs or some habit or some sort of thing that looks like an addiction. Um, you can sort of uh, hide away from it, but it doesn't work because the whatever that thing that's causing the anxiety is still there. So it's kind of better to welcome it in and see what it's telling you.
Yeah, I certainly empathize with that at the moment, um, because like even before the show, I was feeling particularly anxious. You know, it just sometimes it just hits you like a ton of bricks, and you don't know what to deal with it. And this whole technological thing, with the stream right now, is sort of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of made me lose my train of thought, to be honest.
Okay. Well, let me take a moment to read something that I just picked up the other day. Riding the consciousness of worry. Worry is a psychophysical state of consciousness in which you are caught in feelings of helplessness and apprehension about some trouble you don't know how to get rid of. Perhaps you are seriously concerned about your child, your health, or mortgage payment. Not finding an immediate solution, you start worrying about the situation. And what do you get? A headache, nervousness, heart trouble, because you do not clearly analyze yourself and your problems. You do not know how to control your feelings or the condition that confronts you. Instead of wasting time worrying, think positively about how the cause of the problem can be removed. If you want to get rid of a trouble, calmly analyze your difficulty, setting down point by point the pros and cons of the matter, then determine what steps might be best to accomplish your goal. If you have no money, if you feel forsaken, the whole world seems to be going backward, but worry will not provide a solution. Get busy and make this determination. I will shake the world to get my share. In order to keep me quiet, the world must satisfy my need. Each person has performed some work. Even clearing away weeds has done something worthwhile on earth. Why shouldn't everyone receive his just share of the earth's bounty? No one needs starve or be left out. This is written or taken from a speech by Paramahansa Yogananda. He spoke this in 1940 in Ensenada. And Paramahansa Yogananda is the fellow who brought yoga to the Western world.
Oh,
So he came over to the US and toured the place and set up shop in the 20s, 30s. And so he kind of is responsible for, bringing together Eastern and Western stuff. So he felt it was his mission to take the wisdom of the East and bring it to the West.
so what he essentially is saying there is like it sounds like common sense, really. Just to like by confronting anxiety and sort of letting the darkness wash over you. By doing that, you could sort of identify certain aspects of it and figure out ways to uh, like identify what is causing you anxiety and overcome it. Is
Mm.
that sort of a summation of what he said?
That's pretty close. What I'm finding, in fact, I had this conversation with a client yesterday. It was about my mind is fairly easy because I do the things I can do, and I forget the things I just don't bother with the things I can't do. If I can do something about something, I do it. I can't do anything about who's going to elect who or who got elected where or who's going to be elected when. I can't do anything about any of that, so I don't care. I don't care. So the things I can do, as Yogananda mentions, picking up weeds, cleaning up the beach, washing the dishes, uh, talking to clients, those things I'm very comfortable in my life because I only do what I can do. What I can't do, what else?
Hmm. Let me ask you this, because like, as much sense as that makes, for me personally, as somebody that's actually dealing with quite a moderate level of anxiety at this present moment, like as you and I are talking, one thing that is kind of frustrating to me is that, okay, what are things that are within my control? And what can I do about them? Well, as much as I admittedly do try to struggle with the fact that certain things are out of my control, another thing that I do struggle with is when I feel like things are within my control and I'm doing everything that I can to uh, uh, deal with those things and address those problems, and yet nothing ever gets done.
Hmm.
Nothing ever improves.
Sure. Well, one of the things we do in the world of coaching is talk about chunking. Let's say you're disturbed by environmental issues. Okay. You can't control carbon dioxide in the air. You can't control how your neighbors handle their recycling, but you can control how you handle your recycling. So you see what I've done? I've gone from a big problem to a medium-sized problem to a problem that's small enough that it's within my control. So you take an issue and you look at it and you pick it apart until you say, aha, that I can do something about. I can do something about that. So that's what you work on. And so it makes life simpler if you like take it apart. If there's a huge, big, massive issue, some of it you don't know about this, well, you can't do anything about that. But what can you do? You can prepare. Um, I was chatting with someone today about a relationship falling apart. It hasn't quite fallen apart yet, but it's falling apart. So I say, okay, prepare for the worst, do the best you can to be ready for whatever you can do about it. I won't go into more detail, but it's a question of making the best of an unsettling situation by doing those things you can do to remain civil, to take care of what you can take care of.
Hmm. Yeah, well, like, obviously that makes 100% sense, John. And it's, once again, it's something that I frequently tell myself, especially when it comes to YouTube. And I could see that logic applying to other aspects of my life. Um, okay, actually, no, I know a better way to phrase this question. Um, Even when you do break down those things into smaller chunks, um, and you find yourself able to accomplish those smaller goals. Yet, whenever you try to build yourself up to sort of that medium point where you try to take on bigger goals, despite your best attempts, it doesn't work out the way that you're planning it. Like, for example, I happen to notice, like, at the moment, uh, in respect to this particular show, uh, it's how do I put this in a diplomatic way? I've done my best, despite the fact that, the anxiety of doing streaming, even though it's something that I find great meaning in, it does provide me great anxiety. I do it every week with you, and we try our best to help people. Yet it seems that despite our best efforts to try and reach out to people, um, and help them and try to get them to see value in what we're doing, I don't know exactly. And I'm sort of speaking for other YouTubers that are sort of feeling the same way that I am, given the current state of things. It's not necessarily just my problem; it's everybody else's problem. What do you recommend to them when it's like, okay, certain things are, it seems like certain things are out of your control, and you're doing all that you can, yet nothing is changing.
Okay, you've got two issues at two ends of a continuum here. One is the issue of what happens in this YouTube algorithm issue. You can't control that. What you can control is the quality of your programming. That you have control over. To mostly to some extent, the quality, the content, the purity of the intent, and so on. You can control that. So my energy would go toward, present a good product, and the hell with the rest of it.
Yeah, I guess. I guess, like, at the end of the day, that's all that you can really do.
Well, I mean, yeah, that is the element of it that you can control. If, for instance, we have this fellow who sent a mailbag question in, and he's got some good points to make. So he's not worried about algorithms. He's worried about this you could do, this you could do, this you could do. Okay. And so we take what we can do and we focus our attention on those simple projects.
Mm. Yeah, I, uh, I really suppose that is all that I can do. It's just, or anybody on YouTube can do, because it,
I think you should separate it from YouTube and forget there is a YouTube and think about here is us. Here's what we're going to present.
mm,
This is what will be on this thing, whatever it is, because it's the substance of the show that we're actually starting with. That's what we're starting with: the ideas, the context. The main underlying purpose is that we provide a channel for people who can listen, talk, go through your Discord server, send in email bag questions, and so on, and have a safe oasis where they can put their ideas down, be differently wired, and they're in the tribe of differently wired people. They're welcome here.
mm.
Lots of people that are welcome here are not concerned about algorithms. They're concerned about a friendly environment, a friendly place to go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So, I mean, if we're doing that, that's like 100% successful for those subscribers. You got, like, I see you got 85,000 subscribers. This is not bad. This kind of, when we were first talking about this, like 500 was wonderful. So, people are, joining up to your work.
yeah, John, like, yeah, everything that you're saying is right. I just suppose that the one thing that I'm having trouble coming to terms with is just the uncertainty of it all, and that's a problem for everybody, and that's not something that you can take control of, but it is difficult to come to terms with, as you said, when you
Mhm.
should do with anxiety in other respects.
Well, the thing that makes it interesting, at the very least interesting, is that the anxiety is not coming from the rational part of the brain.
Yeah.
It's coming from a deeper fight, flight, freeze, play dead response. So it's this lower brain response, which we've had since forever, um, is something we don't really control. We get this uneasy feeling that we're being attacked or hunted or something bad's going to happen. So what you got to do is say, "Oh, is that a line in the bushes or is that a clothesline? What is it I'm looking at?
Mm.
Oh, you know what I mean? It's like you have to take your cognition and shine light on that fearful thing. And if you can't locate the fearful thing, then you muck around and say, okay, is it this? Is it this? Okay, what about I do this? This is when Paramahansa talks about uh, think positively about the cause of the problem. If you want to get rid of trouble, calmly analyze your difficulty, setting down point by point pros and cons of the matter. So you look and you say, okay, I don't know if I'll have enough money to raise my 6 kids. Okay. I don't have 6 kids. Oh, so that's not a big problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you just pick it apart. A little humor helps. And at every point, it's like you go and you do the thing you can. Sometimes I liken this to crossing a river um, by walking on the rocks. Now, the rocks some of them are solid, some of them are little wiggly pebbles. So what do? You stand on solid ground and you don't jump onto this rock without knowing what it's going to do. You kind of test it a little bit. You kind of see, is this full of slime or algae, or is it going to wiggle and I'm going to fall on my head or something else? And you test the idea and
Mm.
you go little by little. So you know, for the most part, you cross using a sensible try it and see sort of strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose it's just like, this is where the concept of faith has been useful, not just in a religious sense, but just in, like, in a purely secular sense, where it's just like certain
Mm-hmm.
things are out of your control. You're doing the best that you can. You can only hope that through the morality of what you're doing, you will be able to attain some sort of reward down the road. And now that I think about it, even as frustrating as YouTube is for me, I have found, like, just by taking that sort of just, it, 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 how do I put this? I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter. Put it however you like, and you can replace it and put it again another way.
Yeah. So I figure it probably would just be best if I could take a more faith-based approach to YouTube and just hope that by continuing to do what I do, something good will come out of it. Because especially this past week, you remember last week, John, at the beginning of the show, I said, "Hey, I put out a new video on The Shining."
Yeah.
Well, over the past week, the YouTube algorithm picked up on it. And at the moment, I think the last time I checked, it was at just over 170,000 views. So
Good Lord.
yeah, just over a week. And it's just because of the way, like, the theory that I present in that video kind of complicates things. Not everybody was entirely receptive of it, but for the most part, people really seem to enjoy it. But what I actually, one thing that I want to sort of focus on in regards to this particular video and how it relates to the topic at hand is the following. So the title of the video, John, was called The Shining, How a Red Book Could Explain Everything. You remember that scene in The Shining where at the very beginning of the movie, Jack, the lead character's name is Jack, but it's played by Jack Nicholson. He goes in for a job interview, right? And on the desk of of his boss, the guy that's interviewing him, is a red book. And the title of the book is literally Red Book. And I theorized, based on the surrounding evidence that I could find, that the Red Book was actually a piece of material that was written by the psychoanalyst Carl Jung, because he actually wrote a book called The Red Book. And the contents of the Red Book were all brought about by Carl Jung sort of being in that state of mind where you're on the borderline between consciousness and unconsciousness. And how the products of your unconscious mind, or like the stuff that you'd see in your dreams, are sort of bleeding into your waking reality. That's sort of what the whole concept of the Red Book is. And I theorized that that book on his desk was a hint that all the horrors of The Shining could be explained as sort of like an external version of what is going on inside one's internal mind. So it's like, it's really hard to explain, but anyways, there's a red book on the desk, and I thought I explained everything, and people really seemed to warm up to the way that I presented it. Well, a couple days ago, I actually found out through somebody commenting on the video that the Red Book isn't actually likely Carl Jung's Red Book. It's actually, way back in the day, there was a series of standardized red books that hotels across America would carry that sort of outline procedures and ways of operating hotels. So it it wasn't Jung's Red Book, despite the fact that everybody seemed to really like the theory. Now, once I figured this out, I was like, oh crap, I should I tell everybody about this? And I said, well, yeah, I probably should, because it's better to not lie. Obviously, I can't have that on my conscience. Plus, it's just better to have more information. But obviously, being in that state where it's like, oh my God, I had hundreds of thousands of people watch this, and I probably misled them unintentionally. That caused quite a bit of anxiety. So I figured, the best thing to do is just to approach this in a moral way. And so a couple days ago, I put out a video saying, hey guys, it looks like that Red Book isn't Carl Jung's Red Book. It's just one of these red books that hotels used to carry. And surprisingly enough, the majority of the people commenting, obviously, there's one or two people that are idiots, but the majority of people saying, hey, the fact that you were upfront about this and honest about it, instead of just trying to maintain your pride and hopefully ignore this piece of information, people really responded to that positively. And they even said, hey, I subscribed to you because of that. So
Right. So you're not going to be misleading folks.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
And it's
also funny. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking it could have been Mao Zedong's book as well.
You're not the only person. Yeah, you're not the only person that actually made that joke. It could have been Stanley Kubrick subtly implying that he was pro-communism. And
well, the neat thing about such an image on a movie is it's not actually what it denotes, but what it connotes. In other words, it's like a poem. People think a whole range of things. So if it happens to work for the visual, for the reader or the watcher at the time, great.
Mm.
You know, cinematographers and poets and creative people don't mind you thinking of other things when they see their work. You don't have it doesn't have to be actually scientific,
Yeah,
and it hasn't. That's the beauty of this kind of art form. It awakens a lot of stuff in your head.
that is the inherent beauty of art. It's the fact that it is subjective, and one person's
Mhm.
experience with it will differ from that of somebody else's, and the profundity of one person's experience will likely, the likelihood is you'll always be able to find somebody else out there that doesn't see anything in that particular piece of art that you can make mountains out of, and in respect to what I was just saying about the red book, even though I actually put out this information, I must have had 100 variations of the same comment. People saying, "Well, it could be, but it could also be Kubrick saying like, hey, this is a hotel red book, but it could also be a reference to Young's red book because look at the way that it's positioned and it's red, and throughout The Shining, the color of red is prominently featured, so it must mean something." And in that respect, it's actually quite enlightening and reassuring because we often talk about negativity online. It's something that you often see in the news, but in times like this, it's great to take solace in the fact that there are good people out there that
Sure.
will respond to that. Yeah.
That actually loops me back into the theme of the anxiety causing up to. Anxiety comes from that place that's not logical. And that is connotation. So you can have a feeling or a subjective something, you don't know where it's coming from. You can use it in art, you can use it in striking terror in yourself or in others.
Mm.
So it is this unknown stuff. So what you do is you get known as much as you can. Okay, what's going on here? It is dark. Let me get a flashlight. It is cold. I'll put on my coat. I'm really cold. I'll get out of the cold. You do what you can do. It's kind of really simple mantra I'm saying here, but life becomes simpler and simpler and simpler as you deal with those things that you can have some control over. And so I suppose you can ignore some things, or if you're smart, you'll say, oh, there's this category A, I can do something about it. Category B, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look at that in a minute. Category C can wait. So you might have some stuff that's pending. But if you kind of think of it in that way, you say, okay, I know I need to get up now or the day will never start. I'll deal with that
Mm.
and I'll do whatever I have to do. Now, let's see. I can go here. I can go here. What's the benefit of doing that or doing this? Uh-oh, I got a problem with this. Is this a serious problem? Yes, it's serious. Okay, then deal with that serious problem, and so on and so forth. But it's kind of happy to live more and more in the moment. Now, I think we've referred to this guy before, Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
He wrote The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment, and A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life Purpose. Both these, and he's got other stuff, but both these are very powerfully positioning you in kind of the way we're talking now. You don't have to worry about things you can't control. There's no point.
Yeah.
You focus on what matters now, what you can do now to help you. You found out that you might have misled people about the red book, so you said, "Oh, I can fix that. I can say that's it. That's what you can do. Your conscience is clean. People appreciate it. It's fine. You can do that."
Yeah. I maybe just by talking about this, I've actually identified. You've helped me identify what the problem is. It's just I need to be able to make peace with the fact that there's certain things that aren't out of my control, and that I should make peace with the fact that I'm doing everything that I can,
I
even if
think
it's
I think you're doing right up to the edge of everything you can,
yeah.
and and maybe a little beyond.
It certainly feels that way. I'll be
Yeah,
honest with you about that.
yeah.
By the way, just like this whole conversation, it just indulged um, my my fancy here. Just this whole conversation about making a friend of anxiety. It's just this entire conversation you and I, John, we've been having. Have you ever seen Apocalypse Now?
Yes, a long time ago.
Remember that scene towards the end of the movie where Marlon Brando's all like, "You must make a friend of horror."
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Maybe that's where I stole the idea from.
God damn it, Marlon Brando, you and your weird force. God, he was. If you listen to some of the stories about Marlon Brando behind the scenes, that guy was just a. He just didn't give a crap, and he had
He
the.
was an astonishing actor.
Oh
He
yeah,
had such a powerful presence on the screen. He had charisma all over the place. He could play different kinds of roles in different ways. People are still quoting him over and over again in many roles.
he is, in my opinion, the greatest actor to have ever lived, and
He's pretty great.
I think the fact that he was so good, probably sort of let people it helped people to deal with his more eccentric personality traits. But anyways, we're sort of shying away a little bit from the topic, and that was my fault. So, um, yeah, that's pretty much it for the topic, guys. If you're currently going through stuff in regards to anxiety, or being able to confront anxiety, one thing that helps me personally is just hearing what you guys are dealing with, and me being able to talk to you guys. And then when we sort of build up a rapport, whether it's in the comment section on YouTube or on Discord, just being able to externalize my thoughts and you being able to externalize your thoughts, it sort of brings certain things to the forefront of my mind and your mind and anybody else that might be reading, ways that we can deal with this. So please, if you're dealing with stuff like this right now, please comment down below. Let us know. We'd love to continue this particular conversation. So, John, we actually have a segment that we haven't done for a little while that we're going to be bringing to everybody's attention. Why is the live chat disabled? I don't know, but whatever. So we do have a mailbag section. Unfortunately, just with the way things have been lately, with the YouTube algorithm, people haven't really been sending in their emails as much lately, but we've gotten a couple in the last couple days. We're going to be addressing one today. We'll be addressing another one next week. It's just unfortunately the email that I got today just came in a little bit late. But in case you guys at any time want to bring up a topic of conversation on the Differently Wired show, and you're dealing with something, you need advice, you need resources that you need to be directed to, it's really, really easy to send in an email and ask about that sort of stuff. All you have to do is send your email at any time to the email that you see on screen, maxderrat@yahoo.ca, and we will get back to you as soon as possible on the show. So, the one email today, it's not exactly a question, and that's one thing I also want to point out, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a question. It could be a success story. It can be I don't know, something that you saw in the news that you want to bring our attention to so that John and I can discuss it. Anything in regards to mental health or autism we want to talk about on the show, and we'd love to hear from you in respect to that. So, the one email that we have today comes to us from Jonathan. Excuse me, and Jonathan writes, "Hello, Max." Hi, John. Ethan. "This email isn't so much a question, rather a thank you letter and a few suggestions for what you could do next on the channel. I've been following your work for the last year, and all I can say is thank you. I think that your literature, film, and video game analysis videos are of outstanding quality. The Differently Wired show is a great idea to help people with AS. I think we are creating a great community." Well, thank you, Jonathan. One thing that I have difficulty doing is giving myself credit, even though, sometimes I'll do it in a colorful way where it's like, I'll say something like, I don't mean to pat myself on the back, although it is my favorite pastime. That's why I have scars. But no, seriously, one thing that I will take pleasure in and pride in is the community that we have here. The people that watch the show, the people in my Discord server. As I said at the beginning of the show, you're all amazing. I love you so much. So that's absolutely true. I have a few suggestions for some topics for the Differently Wired show. The first one is masking. This is the term that is often brought up in discussions about Asperger's and autism, although I'm not sure if you mentioned or covered it on the show in detail yet. I feel like we have.
I think we may have referred to it, but it's almost worth a whole show.
It is definitely worth the whole show. Maybe somebody, guys, I unfortunately can't do it right at the specific moment. But if any of you can just look at the Differently Wired playlist, the archive that I have on my channel, let me know if masking is on there, because I swear to God we did do it. But if we haven't, I'd love to do it as a topic. Okay. Going on with the email. The second one is perfectionism. This is this is a big one. I understand that a lot of people, including many people who are not autistic, struggle with this issue. However, it seems that it may affect people on the autism spectrum especially badly, myself included. For example, I will probably spend a day or more composing and rereading this email to make sure that I've said everything I wanted to say in as polite and professional a manner as possible. Jonathan, thank you. Thank you for externalizing and articulating the one thing that bugs me the absolute most about having autism. It's my tendency towards perfectionism. Honestly, I edit the scripts for all my videos over and over and over again. Like the most, when I'm about to do a video, for example, like I'm working on a video right now, and it's so maddening. I'm not even sure it's the right word, but it sort of gets across the same general state of mind. Trying to piece together all these different things in your mind and trying to make sure that they're perfect. Because if I don't, the people that comment on YouTube videos, the only thing that they will comment on is that one little mistake that you make. And it's absolutely drives me nuts. Absolutely drives me nuts. And it's like, I feel the need to do that because throughout the rest of my life, it feels that, like, unless I'm absolutely perfect and to everybody's liking at all times, if I make one little slip up for them, well, no, not necessarily for them, but in those particular circumstances where you do make that little slip up, it's almost like all hell breaks loose. Now, granted, it might not be the person that is making you feel bad's fault, because a natural symptom of having autism is a heightened sensitivity to things. So they might just be rebuking something that you said or did in a polite way, and you might be responding to it negatively, or that person just might actually just be a terrible person, right? But it's just having that state of mind all the time. It naturally predisposes you to wanting to be a perfectionist, so that you can try to avoid that heightened sensitivity. Does that make sense to you, John? Like, as me
Yeah, and it's interesting as you're talking about it, I'm realizing a person cannot deny their nature entirely. You can't go from being careful and thorough about writing a show or an email and then sort of become slapdash and uncaring. In fact, this attention to detail is very good to a large extent. It's a question of how much it impacts you and trying to figure out strategies where it doesn't hurt so much. But it's kind of a good thing. I used to go to a dentist who told me he had OCD, and it was fantastic because he was thorough and careful. He checked twice. He researched very well. When the work was done, it was perfect simply because he had a great attention to detail. So it's like fire. Fire is great to cook, but it's terrible if it burns your house down.
Yeah, but it's like I can understand sometimes just the need for perfectionism. It can be so suffocating that you just feel the need to go in the complete opposite direction just so you can get away from it. But doing that, it doesn't help.
It's actually very much like what we've been talking about. You can't really escape that thing. You have to put it in context. So you sit back and say, okay, is this within reasonable, right? You stand back from the thing that's engaging your attention. You might have another person comment, or you might just step back from it and say, okay, this is at least as good as everything I've ever done. So maybe that's enough. Like, give yourself a break on it if you can. Very difficult to do if you're wrapped up in the emotion. Because again, I think perfectionism is not coming from a rational place. It's coming from this feeling place.
Well, I had to slightly disagree with you there, John. I think it can come from both a rational place and an irrational place.
Okay, I accept that.
Yeah,
I accept that.
Yeah.
I accept that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you understand what I mean. So, moving on with the rest of Jonathan's email, 2 other topics. Oh, just one very quick thing. Let's see. Nick Nicholson and Alina DeHaller just confirmed for us that episode 25 was when we did masking. So, Jonathan, if you're listening right now, please go ahead and check that out. And hey, if we don't address something in that particular episode that you think should be addressed, feel free to email us or get in contact with us so that we can discuss it in greater detail in the future. All right, moving on. Two other topics I suggest relating to perfectionism are black and white thinking and taking criticism. You might have mentioned some of these issues on the show briefly. I think it would be good to make one of them the main topic. Yeah, that is actually a good idea, taking criticism. Because, not for me personally, but I remember way back in the day, I did have a hard time taking criticism. Nowadays, if it's constructive, I have no problem taking criticism. But I was just saying about being on the spectrum and having heightened sensitivity. I think it would be good, John, if you and I just had a discussion about how other people who might have difficulty taking criticism can approach that particular issue.
That's actually a very good topic, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like I had the hardest time some days just coming up with future topics for the show, and then like people send in emails or write to me on Discord and say, "Hey, how about you do this?" It's like, "Oh yeah, of course. Why haven't we done that?" And black and white thinking, yeah, that's another thing, because and it also oddly enough goes back to the whole sensitivity issue because. And actually, that's another thing that I could talk about that I have trouble with, because when I do come into contact with something that strikes at the root of my sensitivity, it can turn my attitude into a reflection of somebody who has bipolar disorder. Because on the one hand, I could be at my desk working on something, and then I could read something on the news that is particularly distressing and makes me question the value of humanity. I'm being sort of facetious. And then it just throws me off guard. So yeah, both of those are actually really good topics, Jonathan. I think we might actually do those two subjects in the near future. All right. There's one other suggestion I have for the channel. I see that you started The Silver Lining, in which you show acts of kindness in a world seemingly filled with negativity. As well as talking about the problems that people on the autism spectrum face, we could talk about some of the positive aspects of being autistic. Perhaps we could discuss news stories of people on the spectrum doing something positive for the community or overcoming adversity. Yeah, one idea that I've had for a video on my channel is sort of a way to collectively bring the members of our community together and show their accomplishments as people that are on the spectrum, so that it can sort of direct the conversation around autism in a positive direction. I've had the hardest time trying to figure out how to make something like that happen, and also to have a video like that make the greatest possible impact. Like, maybe some of the people that are listening right now, if you have any ideas about how we can collaborate on something like that, please let me know. John, off the top of your head, can you think of anything?
Well, the least complex one is to have guests on who can address that directly.
Yeah, but I wonder how many people we can get in contact with.
Well, they can contact us right in the chat box.
Yeah, exactly.
And say, okay, I've got this good story. And in the paragraph below, he talks about Greta Thunberg, who, of course, is an astonishing example of someone who's impacting the world with her efforts.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. One other thing that just came to my mind. One person I've been trying to get on the show for a while is a guy that goes by the name The Aspie World. I'm sure you guys have heard of who he is. He's probably at the forefront of the discussion of autism on YouTube. He has over hundreds of thousands of subscribers. If you guys want to try and message him and say, hey, Max wants to bring you on the Differently Wired show, we'd love to have him on. And he's had great accomplishments in that regard. All right, moving on. For example, in the UK, there has been a lot on the news about a 16-year-old Swedish-born woman named Greta Thunberg, who has been an active speaker regarding global warming and recently spoke at the UN Climate Summit in New York after crossing the Atlantic Ocean in a sailing boat. She openly has Asperger's syndrome and has spoken about how AS allows her to think differently and be blunt about the issues of which she speaks. Yeah, here's the thing. Like John said, she does make a positive impact in one sense, and sort of bring into people's attention the issue of climate change. And whether or not you disagree with it, at least it's something that is making people have the conversation at the very least, right? In that sense, it's good. The fact that more people are talking, more people are exchanging ideas. On the other hand, it's I how can I put this? I find that whenever children, and I constitute anybody a child that's below the age of 18, I find that whenever children are put at the forefront of political discourse, there's often a subversive element to it. I'm not saying that Greta Thunberg is conscious of this. I don't think that she is. I think that she's a well-meaning person, but it's just as somebody who wants to see the issue of climate change adequately tackled, I don't find that the way that Greta Thunberg is approaching it to be the most effective. Case in point, she's criticizing primarily the West for the majority of the world's carbon emissions and not paying any attention whatsoever to the negative effects that the Chinese economy is having on the world or the Indian economy is having on the world. And unfortunately, the reason why that's such a big deal is that no matter what positive impact the West could possibly do within the next few decades, it's not going to make much of a dent unless we get those particular economies on board, right? And I just find that
perhaps she's being, she may be being strategic in that she knows China's not going to listen to her.
That's true.
I can't imagine them paying the least amount of attention.
Yeah, they don't really pay attention to their own moral compass at all. I mean, like, just, hey, call the what's his name, Xi, say that he looks like Winnie the Pooh, and then quote the Joker, everybody loses their minds. Yeah, it's just people like that exist. It's a good point. She is being strategic about it, but it's also like you got to be able to actually make something happen. And
I think what's good and wonderful about her is that she's taking her characteristics and using them.
Yes, absolutely.
In a powerful public way, in an articulate public way, in a leadership kind of way. So regardless of the particular strategy that's evolved, she's a leader. She shows the leadership characteristics. So I'm impressed by her ability to present herself, to actually have an idea, follow through on it, and be passionate about it. So I think that reflects well the community of folks that are differently wired.
Yeah, in that respect, I 100% agree with you, John. And, just as we were having this conversation, another thing that might be worthwhile doing on the Differently Wired show is actually not just bringing on people that can be on the show and talk about their particular positive experiences and positive accomplishments. We can actually go through certain people throughout history and show how they were able to overcome their differently wired disposition and actually make positive change. And as people in the chat know, just as well as you and I know, John, is that in a lot of fields, people that are differently wired set the standards in those fields. People like Alan Turing, people like, in my opinion, Robin Williams, people like Dan Aykroyd, people like Bill Gates, people that do these incredible things and change the way the entire world functions. I think it'd be good if we sort of present that information in the future.
I think so, absolutely. And the community may have some suggestions. They may know of people we don't know of who, stand out for that kind of thing. And in fact, if you want to change the world, it's going to come from differently wired directions.
Yeah, because you need people with differently wired brains to be able to think outside the box, which is what a lot of neurotypical people can't necessarily do. I mean, and from time to time, it is good to rely on the knowledge of tradition, but also from time to time, it's good to actually introduce new ideas that could be much more effective. Anyways, to conclude Jonathan's email, he says, once again, I would like to thank you for starting your channel to support and raise awareness of differently wired people. I will support you on Subscribestar. Jonathan, I love you, man. Honestly, just you're a very smart and very articulate individual, and I very much like to thank you for expressing that intelligence in your anyways, stay yellow, Jonathan. Yeah, stay yellow.
It is a very articulate email.
Yes, it is. No, you honestly you did do a good job, and I'm just being colorful as
Yeah,
I am.
it's very articulate, clean, and logical.
Yeah. Anyways, we did have an article to get into, but I'm feeling like I went to the dentist earlier today, and I'd be feeling nauseous all day. So I think it'd just be best if we just end the show just a little bit early. We only have a few minutes left, anyways. We'll address it more next week. Is that okay with you, John? Like, is there anything else that you want to?
That's fine. Much of the stuff that was in the article, we've kind of come at from a different angle in any case.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Sure.
All right. Well, that is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Just before we conclude, before any of you click out, there are 48 of you watching right now. There's only 13 likes. Please.
Oh, one other thing. You've got a Joel has sent in a super chat. What do you call it?
Oh, yeah. I
Way
missed
above.
that. Sorry about that, Joel. I'm sorry I missed that. I have been switching between the windows, but I guess I missed it. Joel,
But there was a lot of topics, and he did say healing words that I needed to hear this week. Keep up the great work. Lovely comment, Joel.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Joel. Joel is a regular viewer and a regular contributor to the show, and it's an absolute blessing to have people like you as a fan and a regular viewer. Believe me. But yeah, just to conclude what I was just about to say, there are 48 people watching and only 13 likes. It sometimes, depending on the way the stream or the YouTube window operates, that number might be bigger, because I'm kind of surprised that it is only 13 likes. But if you could please like the stream, I'd really appreciate it. Anyways, just want to remind you guys before we click out for the night. Let me just fix this real quickly. Just want to remind you, if you want to send in an email at any time, please send it to maxdert@yahoo.ca. That's the email that you see on screen. We'd love to hear from you. Discord, the link to this Discord. I can't talk. Yeah, it's the nausea getting to me. I'm sorry. I'll just say, John, thanks as always for doing the show with me.
Thank you, man.
And I'll talk to you guys all next week. I'll be in the. I'm not sure I'll be able to do a full after show tonight. I'll be in there for the next few minutes if you guys wanted to come and talk to me about a couple things. But then I'm gonna have to head out. So yeah, thanks again, guys, for watching, and until next time, stay yellow.